truth, the reason I went to that orphanage was because I felt like I couldn't be a missionary back then. You know, and, I'm glad to see so many young people here. Do you guys ever feel like that? You know, they call themselves student missionary and go, but I just don't fit into that mode. That's what it was. So actually I was looking for a place that I could go and volunteer for a year without being called a missionary, because I didn't think I was worthy. I was still searching for God. So that's that. But let's get back into the message. I'm here to actually ask your church congregation to consider the possibility of joining the mission work with my home church, San Diego Central Church, to consider this orphanage as a common mission field. Pastor Kevin just read that our scripture, and Jesus promises that if we keep the commandments, He will come, He will send the Holy Spirit. And He says on verse 18, I will not leave you orphans, I will come to you. So what is the definition of orphan in the Bible sense? You know, the worldly sense is that when your parents are both dead, you're orphan. Everybody knows that. But does Bible say that the definition of biblical orphan is right here, I will not leave you orphan, I will come to you. So, if you have Jesus in your life, Jesus came to you, then you're not biblical orphan. Until then, you're all orphans. Right? So, when Jesus says in Revelation 3 that He's knocking at the door, and if we open, then what happens? He will sup with us. He will dwell with us. So, as long as we open our heart, and we have Jesus in our heart, we are not biblical orphans because God is with us. We are adopted into His family. But until then, we are all orphans. Pastor Kevin asked me what will be the title of my sermon, and I said, Pure and Undefiled Religion. That title comes from James 1:27, and he says, Pure and undefiled religion before God and the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their trouble, and to keep oneself unspotted from the world. Adventists, they call themselves movement rather than denomination. And we move on. We believe that we have a special calling, three angels' message. And the second angel's message calls for getting out of the Babylon, right? And we want to keep pure. So, you know, our parents' generation, they used to stock their garage, right? They moved to the country to keep ourselves pure. But how do we keep pure in this context, in this visiting orphans and widows in their trouble? And I read in such a way that while we are doing this God's command, we are keeping ourselves pure and undefiled. It goes hand in hand. Book of James, many people would like to take this book, this letter, and throw out because they say it goes against all the righteousness by faith. The grace, salvation by grace. It talks too much about works. But I think James is right on it. While we are doing God's mission, we ourselves are transformed. Okay? So, let me introduce you this orphanage. If we can get the slides going. Hiragwan is an orphanage in Korea. That's the Hiragwan that was being built when I got there. They don't even like to use the word orphan or orphanage in Korea because it has such a negative connotation. So they call it children's home now. It's located in the outskirts of Busan, the second largest city in Korea. It's not an Adventist institution. It's not even a Christian institution. But it has a long and interesting history of connections and relationships with the Adventist community. That's why this Hira orphanage is fertile field, uniquely fit for Adventist mission work with many ready souls. Let me introduce you. Let's look at a few slides. This is orphanage. We can go to the next one. And then another one. And then let me go one more. Another. I'm just giving you general. Now, you see me holding a little child. My right and left, there's a lady and a gentleman wearing red, right? That red jacket, he is the founder. And the lady with red sleeve, that's Mrs. Park, Mr. and Mrs. Park. They are the founders. Mr. Park worked at the Adventist ran orphanage when he was young. And then he started Hiragwan after he worked in that Adventist orphanage. He's a Christian and an Adventist, although he does not attend any church. In fact, I've never seen him go to church. Okay? He has a positive attitude toward SDA in general, and he was, and he still is a visionary. For example, when I got there in 1984, we were building the building you saw, and building plan was designed for one-story building, but he had this vision that it's gonna be three-story building, okay? And he didn't even have enough money to build one-story building. So he contacted the prison, and the prisoners were coming over to build a church. So we were actually using prisoners, and all our attention was to watch these kids from bad influence. So the orphans were not skilled laborers. We were carrying bricks and cements up to build the building, and the prisoners were the skilled laborers, and they were actually building this structure. And yet in his mind, with no money, he says, this is going to be a three-story building. And the building is built on a hill. So in the front, they have to have a pillar to make the floor even. And on the back, the second floor is actually touching the ground. Okay? And the staff and the orphans, some of you Koreans remember kuruma. Do you know what that kuruma is? That's hand cart with two wheels. People are carrying, they sell, yacht, the sweet stuff, We were using kuruma, or the hand cart, to actually break the earth under the building to make the space of the bottom floor. And we were doing that all throughout the summer. And then inspection time comes. When we heard the inspector coming. And then we realized it's going to be a trouble because we have a space under the building. So 2 days before the inspector's visit, we are told to go get the earth and put it right back under the building. It was raining. We did that well into night. All the orphans and the staff getting all muddy, bringing all the dirt. And then we did the inspection. And then we had to move the earth again. But amazing thing is, at least part of his vision was fulfilled. It is a two-story building. When we got there, the very room, the guest room that we stayed at, is the very space that I helped evacuate. So he is definitely a visionary. And Mrs. Park, on the other hand, she grew up as an orphan in that Adventist orphanage that her future husband worked at. And she doesn't want to do anything to do with church, anything to do with Christians, anything to do with Adventists. And frankly, I totally understand what she's talking about, because I heard so many horror stories of orphanage in Korea. Okay, for example, she used to tell me this story. She said that all the kids would wake up in the morning by the bell, and this bell is the bell telling the kids that the chapel is starting. And as soon as you hear this bell, 200-300 kids just make a ruckus and just jump up like as if they're living in the Marine boot camp. And they're pushing everybody to get to the chapel. The older boys pushing young girls, there's no mercy at this, right? Why is that? Because of hundreds of kids, only the 80 gets into the chapel, and then they get the breakfast. And the ones that does not make the cut of 80, what happens? They are lined up outside of chapel getting beating in the morning. You start your day by getting a beating at the orphanage, okay? While you listen this hymn sung by the older kids who are lucky enough to get in there and get the breakfast. And she said, even as a toddler, she couldn't relate how an adult would insist on worshiping in such a hypocritical, mean, egotistical God. What idiotic thing is this? Religion, she said. But she is loving, kind. If I picture a true Christian, I would picture her. But she is non-Christian today. Mr. and Mrs. Park are now retired. They are well into their 70s. But they're still there, as you can see in the picture. And Hiragun is now run by their elder daughter, Sohang Park. She's the one with the glasses, wearing the black jacket. I am not very objective in this statement, but in my opinion, she runs the best orphanage in Korea. She's received many citations from the government, different level of government, universities, social work department, places like that. And Hiragun is a secular orphanage, and it is now illegal in Korea to force any religion on orphans. So even if you're running Catholic orphanage, you're not supposed to do these things. They got so much power, they continue to do that. So there is no worship or mention of God in the orphanage life today in Korea. It's quite different than when I was there. And let me tell you how I fit into this. Ruth mentioned this a little bit. But on my senior year at PUC, I was in school cafeteria eating my lunch. And Doyun was there as freshman at that time. And I was talking to this Korean theology major named Esther No. Some of you know Esther. And we were just having conversation, and we were talking about what we're going to do after we graduate. And I said, oh yeah, I'm lining up for some job interviews all the way in San Francisco, but you know how terrible it is to try to arrange an interview in an Angwin out in a booty when there's no cell phone. You know, you have to type everything. There's no, computer type. You have to type the resume and the open letter, send it out, everything's done. And I said, this is so hard. I wish I would be doing something more exciting before I get into my career. And she says, like what? And I said, I don't know, like volunteering at an orphanage or something. I just said that. And she goes, I know exactly the place that you should contact. She's from Korea. She says, I used to visit this orphanage, and I have an address. I got contact information. I said, oh, maybe. And then we split off. But then next time I saw her, she actually gave me the address and the name and says, you got to write this place. And this went on for 2 months. And it got so bad, like every time I go outside of my room, I'm looking to see if I'm going to run into her, And cafeteria, I'm checking out. Library, I'm checking out. Anytime I'm walking by the religion department, I'm just running, running away. But eventually, I ended up writing to them, and they said, by all means, come. We need you. So I went volunteering there way back in 1984-85. And it really changed my life. I didn't know then, but it really changed my life. When I got there, they had a farm. I learned to milk the cow. I really had a good time. And I tutored students, went to the parent-teacher conferences. I took the kids to police station to register them as orphans, worked in the vegetable garden, led the morning worship, lived in a room with 8 orphan boys, carried bricks and cements during the construction. And like Ruth said, Ruth came to visit me while she was working in Seoul. And that is one of my fondest memories, her visit when I was there. After I volunteered there, I came over and got a job in Santa Ana as an auditor. But somehow that experience changed me so much that my job was not fulfilling my need. So I started homeless feeding Monday through Thursday. And it was hard work. It took 3-4 hours each day, then to prepare and then to go serve. We cooked all afternoon after work on Monday, and we would do the feeding on Tuesday. We would cook another meal on Wednesday, and we would feed on Thursday. And when I was doing that alone for a while, it was really hard, and one of my college friends said, I'll come and help you. And that friend's name was Jewel Kim at that time. And two years later, we were married. We moved on to San Diego. About 10 years ago, I got involved with the prison ministry because I was always feeling that yearning for something more. And 2 years ago, I retired. Our church asked me to be the Bible worker for the church. So I volunteered as a Bible worker last 2 years. And my wife, Jewel, just retired after Christmas. So we are ready for the next chapter in our lives. And last year, when I retired and I was working as a Bible worker, Mr. and Mrs. Park and Soam searched and searched. They say they were searching for a year to find us. We don't do Facebook or anything like that, so she couldn't find us. So finally, we got a call from Canada that they are looking for us. So we were reconnected after all these years, and they invited us to come out. So Jewel and I went back to Korea. That was my first time going back to Korea since 1985 when I was there at the orphanage. And it was Jewel's first time going back to Korea since 1969 when she immigrated as a first grade. So it was a culture shock in a way. And I like to, Hiragwan, when we last visited, it was a home for 37 children. Their ages range from 3-month-old to 21 years old. And I think they are up to 40 now. I'd like to introduce to you some of the children we befriended while we were there last spring. We can go to the next slide. That girl's name is Soyeon. She's born in September of 2013. That makes her what, 5 years old, right? When we met her, she was 4. And if you go to the next slide, that's her. Next couple slides is just her, so we can kind of go back to the next view. That's the cafeteria. And I love to play with the orphan kids. So I visited different rooms, playing with them in each room. She's living with 5-6 different kids in her room. So I went over there and said, hey, I came here to play with you guys, and we're playing house, and all kinds of things. But after a while, she got very possessive. She wanted all my attention. And all of their kids are playing well, but she just wanted my attention. She says, don't look at them. Play with me. Carry me. Hold me. All that stuff. And I'm saying, look, do you see this gray hair? I'm old enough to be your grandparents. My back's going to break. Sit down. Let's play together. But she wouldn't have that. And then she jumped on my back and said, no, you play with me. You carry me. And I said, look, I can't play with you this way. You have to behave. You have to get down. But this girl is so stubborn. She hung on there for 10 minutes. I was so tired. My back's aching. I said, okay, kids, let's play house. But you guys play house right over there. Okay? And then I took her to the opposite side of the room. I sat down and I said, Soyeon, if you don't come down, you're going to choke me, and I'm not going to play with you. And then she wouldn't listen. So I just sat there and didn't say anything for 30 seconds. It must have been like eternity for her, right? I mean, 30 seconds, just not getting any response this long time. And then I suddenly grabbed her arm and pulled her over. And I'm holding her really tight, right? And she's like shocked, looking at me like, am I in trouble? And I said, borderline mean thing. I said, why were you born, Soyeon? And what's she gonna say? Silence, And her eyes getting big and she's just looking at me. And I said, Soyeon, why were you born? She wouldn't say anything. And I asked her again, Soyeon, why were you born? How could anybody respond to that, right? And I don't even know why I said that. And then I said, Soyeon, you were born to be loved. You were born to be loved. You do not have to fight to be loved. You don't have to fight for the love. Look around. See your friends? They want to love you. They want to play with you. Your mothers love you. Your fathers love you. See? All the staff that works with the children, if you're female, your mother, your mom. If you're a male staff that works with the kids, they're all your dads. So I said, all your moms, all your dads love you. I love you. You don't have to fight to get my attention. I love you. And I said, God loves you. And without skipping a beat, she said, God is dead. God is dead. She's never been to church, never heard of God, because they're not supposed to hear any religion in this place. And she says, God is dead. And I don't know what took over me, but I said, no, he isn't. I just talked to him this morning. Okay, another silence. And I said, Saya, do you like nice warm day, bright day, or do you like cold night, dark night? She looks at me like strange, and what is this man talking about? And she says, well, I like warm day. And I said, see, God knew that. God loves you. And that's why God said, let there be light. And I said, would you like to sleep in a dark, wet, muddy room? Or do you want to stay in a nice, dry, warm room? And she's looking at me like, this man must be losing his mind. He says, I like nice, dry room. That's why God separated the water and the earth for you, because he loves you. And then I told the story of how God loves her so much that God made wonderful fruits that she likes. The stars and the moons and the suns, the trees and the animals and the birds and the fish. And I told her, oh yeah, God loves you. And you don't have to fight to be loved. You are born to be loved. And kids say the darndest thing. She looks at me and says, why can't we see God? And I said, do you see those kids playing? She goes, yeah. Can you see what they're feeling? She looks at me and goes, huh? No. Now, can you see them? She said, yeah. Can you see what's in their heart? Can they see you when you're hurt, when you're angry, when you're sad? And she said, no. That's why. God sees that. God sees what's in your heart. And you see God with your heart, not with your eyes. And she didn't say anymore. I was scared to have conversation at this time. So I just moved on and I said, Saya, now that you know that you are here because you are designed to be loved, so let's go play with those kids so that they can love you. But before that, let's go to mom and tell her what you learned today. And I took her hand and walked over to the next room where there was a female staff, and I said, Mom, Sayan learned something today. She wants to tell you that. And I asked her, Sayan, why were you born? And this staff looks at me, what's this guy teaching this child? And she, with a smile, shyly said, to be loved. And that staff looked at us and she smiled, of course, of course. And I gave her a hug and said, go play. And that was that day. And then, next morning, I heard at 7 o'clock this bell ringing, announcing it's time for breakfast. So I walked down to the cafeteria. In fact, the picture that you saw earlier than this, she's walking to the cafeteria with a friend. Okay? So, and she's going to the preschool, saying hi. And I went into the cafeteria, and all the kids are all happy to see me and say, hi, come sit with us. All that. So I'm going table by table saying good morning and hugging the kids. And I got to this table that Sayan is sitting like that. And I went to the table, and they're all saying hi and, making funny faces. And Sayan, when I got to Sayan, she grabs my arm and pulls me over to her. I goes, oh, here we go again. I talked with God this morning. And I was so shocked because I never told her how to pray. I didn't tell her to put your hands, kneel down, and say what's in your mind. All I said was, God is not dead because I talked to him this morning. And she got up next morning and she talked to God and she wanted to tell me. The next breakfast, I got there. And this time, I'm looking for her. And I went to her and I asked her, Sayan, did you talk to God this morning too? And she gives me a big smile, that knowing smile, and she nods. I was wondering why I was in Korea. I was wondering, after all these years, why I was in the orphanage again. Is God calling me to do something here? Is God telling me that my next chapter after the retirement is here somehow? And Sayan answered me that question right then. I knew why I was there. Last September, that's now 6 months since I visited the orphanage. Soham calls me and says, you gotta hear this. You'll be so pleased because I told Soham about this story right after. She says, you know, this is a good news, bad news story. Just a couple days ago, in September, a donor brought sushi for the staff and the orphans. It's a treat, right? Except it was very hot in September. Some of the sushi went really bad. And there was just food poisoning galore at the orphanage. The staff and children are throwing up all over the place. It was emergency. I mean, they didn't know what to do with it. Sayan, 6 months in, we visited in March. This is September. Sayan was one of the few lucky ones that didn't get food poisoning. And Soham told me that she was going from a staff to staff, a child to child, saying that you need my prayer. I will pray for you so that God will heal you. And then next morning, when they were feeling better, she was going around telling everybody, see, my God listens to my prayer. You are better because I prayed. When I heard this story, I yearned to be there.
No, I won't touch
to
it.
encourage her
I won't touch
that
it.
she's on the right course. To hold on and don't give up. Listen to God's voice every morning. Let's look at the next slide. This is Eunho. It's an old picture. He's born in 2012, October 2012. That makes him 6 years old, and he is the first baby admitted to this orphanage. Until then, only the school-age kids lived there. When I was there, it was first grader on. But the law changed, and in 2012, they started sending infants, and he's the very first one. And his mother worked in a sex industry. She couldn't have this baby with her. She realized the environment is endangering the baby. So she voluntarily gave up this beautiful boy, and the boy came to the orphanage. And a year later, if you go let's look at some of his pictures. Okay, now that's him, 6 years old. Okay? He's a very happy boy. And he gets as normal of a life as is possible at the orphanage. He's getting violin lessons, he's doing hapkido, and he's just a normal child. Okay, let's go to the next picture. And this girl, her name's Chaewon Kim, and she's born a year later, in 2013. She's 5 years old. Okay? We can go to the next picture, next few pictures, and we have the older picture of her. She was left in front of the apartment complex with no information, and when the doctor saw the baby, the doctor said she's about a month old. Okay, so the baby discovered in September of 2013, and not knowing any family history, no birthday, they decided what is the most popular name in Korea? Last name, Kim. So that's why she's Kim. Okay? And born about a month ago from September, we will give the Korean Independence Day, the Korean holiday. So her birthday is August 15th, and her name is Kim. Okay? But we don't know anything about her. And she's also growing up to be a very normal child. Okay? That's kisses. She's saying, hey, I hear me, She's a very normal child. And Soham Park, the superintendent there, currently a superintendent there, as she started raising these infants from 2012 on, had this crazy idea. She conceived this idea that would not go away. And she's saying, when Eunho and Chaewon and these little kids grow up,
No.
we should send them in an elite private schools. In Korea, sending the elite private school costs as much as college tuition here. Okay? And when she started sharing this idea to the people, they thought she was crazy. The situation in Korea today is unfortunately that it is still the orphans are considered undesirable. Okay? Just having an orphan in a school classroom diminishes the school's prestige. The parents and teachers equate having an orphan in their class with a lower academic standards and social standing. Practically no one was taking Soham's idea seriously or remotely positively. They said practically no private school would accept an orphan, even if they want to, only to face the wrath of parents and alumni. It just won't happen. Many said even if the orphans somehow got into the elite private school, they would be shunned and ridiculed. And all said the cost would be unbearably expensive. But Soham didn't give up on her dream. And I think God put it there. She's not a Christian. She's been to church. She experienced church life growing up while I was there, when Ruth was visiting. But she's getting this idea, and this wouldn't go away. She also lived in Canada for a while. So she understands that this prejudice in Korea against orphans is not are not as pervasive within the church, especially outside of Korea. Then 2 years ago, amazing thing happened. Busan Adventist Academy. They were like 1.5 drive away, the other side of long Busan. Bought land right next to the orphanage, almost walking distance. Built their church school, brand new, and moved next to the orphanage. And ding, it rang a bell in her head and says, I'm going to put these kids in the Adventist Academy. Okay? And she started thinking of me because she knew I was an Adventist. She knew I was living outside of this country and do not buy into that prejudice. She knew Jewel, and I would support her. So she was searching for us for a year. And that's why we got connected. And when we got connected, she said, you've got to help us to put these kids to the academy. Their ages are getting to that time that they need to go to school. And I said, what's the problem? I'm thinking Adventist Academy here, right? Oh, they would welcome you. I just go down to them. Why do you need me? He goes, are you kidding me? Wake up and smell the rose, right? And she started explaining, and I said, oh, she's afraid to hear no. Once you hear official no from school, that's done, right? So she says, we don't want that. We want some connections. You get me some connections. So through the Adventist community, I was able to get the director of education at the Korean Union, Korean Adventist Union. And we arranged a meeting with Soan and us and the director. And from that, we were able to get the connection to the principal of the academy. And we pulled some strings with the pastors. And we met and explained the situation. And long story short, we got Eunho into that school, and he starts in this March. 2nd March is the day that he starts at school. Okay? So we know they are going to go through some trouble. We know that the shelter and the bubble that they lived in and their happy childhood will be punctured by these prejudices that they're going to run into, even in the Adventist Academy, unfortunately. They are going to be the Jackie Robinson of sorts. You guys all know who Jackie Robinson is, right? The first black baseball player to play in major. And you know, even the Americans back then, how mean they were. They were, you know, throwing racial slurs and all that. It's going to go, they have to be strong. In November 2018, just a couple months ago, the board of my home church, the San Diego Central SDA Church, formally approved the fundraising to start an Adventist education scholarship for the children of Hirap Orphanage. And our church is also looking into a short-term mission trip to Hirap Orphanage. Soan, the current superintendent, although not Adventist, not Christian, is asking us, the Adventists in the United States, to help them raise these wonderful children to be happy, healthy, and strong. She recognizes as non-Christian the limit of what Hirawan could offer to these children. And she's asking us to provide a missing ingredient. And she knows it too. It is the spirituality. It is the gospel. And she cannot deliver it. So she's asking us to deliver that. She is opening the door for us to bring the gospel to the children, because they as staff and superintendent cannot bring the religion, but as volunteers, we could. She is actually asking me if I could possibly arrange some kind of camp during the summer so that Hirawan's children can better assimilate with the academy kids and surrounding neighbors. Can you believe that? They're literally asking us to do the VBS. And she wants to do this in English. Because when you do it in English, parents get all excited about learning English. And they will send the kids even to the orphanage if the church pathfinders are doing it. You know? She wants the Adventists from overseas to convince the children, not just the kids in the orphanage, but the children of Korea, that they were born to be loved and not to believe all those hurtful, mean lies of prejudice. She's actually begging us to convert these kids to Christian. Let's go over some slides. I took them and took this picture. This is Adventist Academy. On Sabbath day, they were having church there. The school is so loaded. Each elementary Adventist school have their full pastors assigned. You know how hard for Adventist church in California to get even part-time pastor? They got full-time pastor, and they do their own church for non-Adventist students and parents. So I took them there, and that's the first grade classroom. So I took the pictures with Lino and Chela. Okay, let's go. And we took the picture with the principal there. That's 부산 36 초등학교. That's Adventist elementary school. Let me show you. This girl is 3 years old, born in 2015. Did you know that in Korea, you could send the infant to orphanage on the Korean UPS? As an infant, even the orphanage staff didn't know that was possible. They see this little motorcycle, Korean UPS delivery, and in the back there's a little paper box wrapped around with the holes on the side, and there's baby in there. That's her, with a little note from the mother saying her name and her birthday. Look at her. How gorgeous she is. I said, the mother must have died, literally died, broken heart, when she had to give up that infant baby. Can you imagine what went through the mother's mind when she's writing the name and the birthdays? The previous two children that I showed you. When you abandon a child in a public place, not leaving a name or anything else, that means they're saying, we don't want to do anything to do with it. We are cutting the connection here. When somebody puts a note in there, that means someday we will meet again. You can see that. Let me show you the next picture. His name is Hara. This boy, he just breaks my heart. He is the government's social experiment of foster parenting in Korea gone bad. They want to get rid of orphanages. Not because there's no orphans, because the government thinks it's shameful to still have orphanage in developed country like Korea. They want to disperse all these kids, and they wanted to do foster parenting. You know, Korean people don't adopt in general in Korea. Okay, they don't want to do anything to do with orphans. That was a bad idea to start with, but they went ahead and recruited some foster parents who didn't have any idea what foster parenting requires. So this beautiful boy was picked up by wishful thinking foster parent with no experience. Mother was a pastor. Mother is a pastor. The father is a medical doctor. They decided to be a foster parent. And I don't know how long ago that was. Maybe he was 2, 3, 4, I don't know. He's only 5, right? And when I took that picture, it's 6 now. They suddenly decided with their career and busy schedule, they cannot possibly do foster parenting. This is becoming a burden. I don't know how long they were foster parents. Maybe a few months, maybe a year. But they decided to quit. Except they didn't tell him. They just took them, we were going somewhere, came to the orphanage, dropped off the kids, without saying goodbye, they're gone. They're gone. And this boy is wondering where his parents are, looking out the window. He was so stressed. I heard he couldn't go potty. They had to take him to the hospital, see the doctor specialist, because his bowel movement just stopped for weeks. Because of time, I'm just showing you few of these pictures. But would you join me and go tell Eunho and Chaewon the Jackie Robinson story, and that we believe in him and her, and that we love them, and don't believe the lies of prejudice, and that we love them for who they are and not for who their biological parents are. Would you join me in telling Seoyeon not to lose her first love, to keep her faith, and give her that big giant hug that she so craves? Would you join me in telling Chukbo, that little girl that was delivered by UPS box, how special she is, and telling Haram that we love him. He's a wonderful boy. Going back to that Seoyeon story, I knew that I wasn't speaking out of my own. Out of my own, I would have never been that rough with her, saying that why were you born? I knew the Holy Spirit was working in me and speaking through me. In Matthew 10, 19 and 20, it says, "But when they deliver you up, do not worry about how or what you should speak. For it will be given to you in that hour what you should speak. For it is not you who speak, but the Spirit of your Father who speaks in you." And that happened to me that March last year. There is no doubt that God was speaking. And without any stoppage, I was able to respond to her the way I did. It wasn't because I was a good speaker, I was prepared to child psychology or anything like that. If you read one verse prior to Matthew 10, 19 and 20, it says, "You will be brought before governors and kings for my sake, as testimony to them and to the Gentiles." So if God filled his promise to me that I can speak So what Holy Spirit is directing me, she is the governor and the king. The Bible tells us that these children, the least of these, are Jesus. And Jesus' brother and sister. These are the kings and queens. These are royal priesthood. The Bible tells us that. Let me conclude this. I know time has passed, but let me conclude by going back to Soyeon's story. Okay? A day or two after I had that God is dead conversation, one of the staff just happenstance told me the background of Soyeon. He says, Soyeon used to be really happy, but she has little temper tantrum nowadays. And that is because a few months ago, when she was originally abandoned by her mom, and they lost touch, even though she voluntarily brought Soyeon to the social worker, but they disappeared. But social workers searched and tried to track her down, and they finally found her just a few months ago. So like in maybe December or November of the previous year that I visited. And although she didn't want to make the reconnection, the social worker kept on encouraging her that she doesn't have to take her back and raise her, but she needs that connection. You should keep the connection for the future. So she said, okay. So they arranged this meeting with Soyeon and her long-lost mother. The first meeting went okay. Soyeon was all excited about finding her real mother and everything. But the mother just wasn't committed. The second meeting was supposed to happen, and then she canceled it. They schedule another one, and she shows up late. And she makes all these promises, probably because of guilt. I'll do this for you, I'll bring you this, and someday we'll do this together. I'll take you to the playground. And that never happened. Soyeon gets all frustrated and temperamental and start complaining, and her behavior start changing. And to a point where she says, I will not go see my mother. She's not my mother. And that's when I was talking to her. Now you understand. When she said, God is dead, what was she really saying? My mother is dead to me. That's what she's saying. The amazing thing was, I knew that before I heard this background. I knew that. You know how I knew? My father died when I was 8. Jay was 10. My sister was not even 6. She was 5, probably. 5 or 6. And he died so suddenly. It was so unexpected. He just dropped dead playing golf one day on my mother's 39th birthday. My mother, in such a grief, just broke down completely. And she abandoned us emotionally. She stopped being a mother to a point where she literally yelled and blamed us for preventing her from committing suicide. To us. And I remember as an 8-year-old boy thinking, not being able to verbalize, but thinking, I lost my father too, woman. And thinking, you are not my mother. You are dead to me. I remember. when I was speaking to Soyeon, that suppressed memory that I didn't think about for decades came to me. And I knew somehow she is talking about her mother on a subconscious level. See? When God speaks to us and we become the channel of Holy Spirit, we are saved. We are healed. God is saying, you may just not think about that. But when you become the channel of Holy Spirit, I'm going to heal you. And God was healing my 50-year-old wound while I was helping to bring healing to this raw and brand new wound of this child. I am here to do fundraising today for the Adventist education for these orphans. But I am not going to ask you for pledge. We're not going to do any collections today. Because if I ask for the money and take that money and go help that orphanage, I am cheating you. I am cheating you to become that channel of Holy Spirit, being a part of that healing miracle, experiencing the words of God coming out of your mouth, and being healed yourself in that wondrous miracle. Would you, the member of Upper Room Adventist Fellowship, heed the call of Holy Spirit?
Amen.
Would you take the yoke along with the members of San Diego Central Church to bring the gospel to Hirang Orphanage? Not only to the children there, but to staff. And remember Mrs. Park? She needs to hear the gospel too. To Mr. and Mrs. Park, and to Soang, who doesn't know how to provide that missing ingredient. She needs to hear the gospel too. And what about all those neighbors? And what about those Adventists still in that prejudice? They don't even know what they're doing. They all need to hear from us. Our mission project with the Hirang Orphanage is at infant stage. We don't know what to do. We do not yet have any concrete plan of what to do. We just have this desire, maybe we can do BBS. Yes, we are doing fundraising because that's an obvious next step, but it's just a small project. We invite the Upper Room Adventist Fellowship to work with San Diego Central SDA Church to work on this mission project together. I'm not going to all the big churches. You're the only church I visited. After talking to my brother, I pray to God that He will give us some small churches, that 2-3 churches working together for one common mission project. And your church came up. And you're the very first church, and the only other church that I'm thinking about is the Oregon Central Church, where some of your transplanted Upper Room members are. I've heard some wonderful things about Christians over there, such as yourselves. Wouldn't that be wonderful? When small churches work together, brainstorming and reach out, and they're ready for harvest. They're ready. They want us, and they want to be helped. And we can just help them. And I'm dreaming that when we go visit in Korea, instead of staying in a hotel, come there like we did, stay over there, get to know kids. You know, I dream that wouldn't that be wonderful if some of your family with little children wants to teach your children Korean, so go during summer and put them into the academy there for a month. And you know what it would mean? That you guys would live at the orphanage and say to Uno and Chaewon, they're my cousins from America. We can break that prejudice, and we ought to. Let me end with my mission spotlight with Isaiah 52:7. How beautiful upon the mountain are the feet of him who brings good news, who proclaim peace, who brings good tidings of good things, who proclaims salvation, who says to Zion, your God reigns. Would you take the heavenly call to be the feet of God who brings good news today?
Amen. Amen.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father,